What can be said about Resident Evil that hasn't already been said? That can certainly apply to the original PlayStation release, but what about the often forgotten Sega Saturn release? Usually seen as the inferior port to the horror classic, this 1997 release is the same base game, but also has some exclusive features not seen in any of the other versions, including the director's cut. Most notably, the inclusion of a battle mode, a minigame where you must defeat every enemy in the area to progress. The gameplay is still classic Resident Evil. You move around using the now infamous tank controls around fixed camera angle environments. Translating those controls to a Saturn pad is spot on. There is no auto aim however, so if you're used to playing the director's cut on PlayStation, then be prepared to actually aim where you want to shoot. In general, the difficulty also seems to be tweaked, with enemies having more health. The best example of this is the bosses. What used to take a few grenade rounds in the original now needs almost double in some cases, so saving ammo and making sure you hit is even more important than it was previously. Graphically, it's tough to complain that this actually looks worse than the PlayStation version. Whilst character models up close do look slightly worse, there's not enough of a difference to call out the Saturn version as a horrible or bad port. The backgrounds do tend to look sharper, something that is far more noticeable though. Cutscenes can also be hit or miss, some looking brighter but also grainier. As usual though for the Saturn, transparencies aren't great, but they do the job of imitating water and glass where needed. Thankfully, as it is a port of the original game, it doesn't use the horrible remixed music from the director's cut. The sound effects are all the same, and the voice acting is as amazing as it has always been.
I have a rope here.
Oh, do you? Well then I'll try to go down using the rope.
Of course!
Load times are nearly the same, if a second or two different in some areas. The added in tick enemies exclusive to the Saturn version are essentially just reskinned hunters in red, but do pose the same amount of threat. Overall, it's just as good a game as it was on the PlayStation. The minor differences in graphics don't outweigh the gameplay, so it's basically just the same game, just on the Saturn. I used to rent this out every single weekend for weeks, completing it over and over again, until the store basically got rid of their inventory of Saturn games and I happened to actually buy this off them. These days I mainly play the PS1 version of the game, but that's just through convenience and not because one game is better than the other. And if my opinion doesn't sway you that the Saturn version of Resident Evil is a good game, then take the word of the official Sega Saturn magazine. To quote Lee Nutter from the Resident Evil review, obviously the big question regarding Saturn Resident Evil is whether it has been significantly enhanced to be considered superior to the original. Well, the bad news is that the characters lack the garage shading of the original, but to compensate somewhat for this small deficiency, the Saturn version has more detailed and sharper backgrounds, several new monsters, different costumes, 2 bosses instead of 1, slightly better loading times, and the awesome battle mode. With all these extra bits thrown into the mixture, the Saturn version is superior to the PlayStation version, which bodes well for the Saturn version of Resident Evil 2. I think it's a great game, the official Sega Saturn thinks it's a great game, and I'm sure I'll review Resident Evil 2 for the Saturn in the future. Psst. What? What do you mean it never came out for it? What the f— Anyway, I've been Tom from VPG Gaming, thanks for watching and have a great gaming day.